Well, hey everybody, my name is Stephen Jones and I'm the Salt Company Director in Cedar Falls, Iowa at the University of Northern Iowa. And I took that role about 2.5 years ago. And it is a great church, a great college ministry, and a great campus. But one of the realities when I took over was that there was a culture of not sharing the gospel. And so one of the tasks that I immediately addressed was how to generate an evangelistic culture inside this college ministry. And so as I reflected over the last couple years of what we did as a ministry and leadership team to reinvigorate people to share their faith with their friends, I came up with 5 commitments that we made as a ministry in order to create this culture. And so I want to walk through these 5 commitments, and regardless of where your ministry is at with evangelism and sharing their faith, I hope these are helpful. So the first commitment, if you're trying to generate an evangelistic culture, is you as the leader have to commit to leading the way. It was imperative in that first 6 months, 12 months of us really addressing evangelism for me as the leader to commit and to set the pace for our ministry. So for me, that looked like if I didn't have a unbeliever scheduled in my week, I felt like that was a failure of that week. So every single week as the leader, I needed to meet with a non-believer with the hope of sharing the gospel with them. And so that didn't mean that I shared the gospel more than every student or leader in our ministry, but it meant that it was visible that I was setting the pace for our ministry in that. In the future, in the coming months, it involved having non-believers in our home. So when we were really tackling this area of our ministry, I believe that my wife and I had just as many non-believers in our home as believers. And so it was just imperative for our ministry that me as the leader set the pace. It starts with you as the leader. Your ministry will not go beyond you and your zeal and your passion and commitment for evangelism. So that is the first commitment. Second, the thing that you need to commit to next is a singular focus. There's a lot of great things as a ministry that we could give our attention to. But if you find that your ministry lacks passion for evangelism, this is the time to have a singular focus in that. To not necessarily devote energy to mercy ministries, those are great, not necessarily devote energies to other areas that are good. This is the time to have a singular focus in creating a culture of evangelism. And so for us, that looked like all of our leader trainings were devoted to training students on how to share their faith, whether that be in one-on-one context, in small group seeker study context, or establishing a new believer in the faith. Each of our monthly leader trainings was about evangelism. It looked like our sermon series in our midweek gathering, that was oriented around the topic of evangelism. It looked like our staff team thinking about it regularly. Third, commit to a simple process. There's a lot of ways that we can go about sharing our faith and sharing the gospel, but a simple process was imperative for us to create a sense of momentum for our students and to make it accessible. So we said, hey, there's a lot of ways to share your faith, but we're going to stick with the 3 circles. We just want you to share the 3 circles with your friends. There's a lot of ways to start conversations. We want you to start with a simple survey question from our evangelism training workbook. Don't throw 1,000 different ways that you could share your faith to your students. Just say, hey, here is how we are going to do it this semester. We're going to pray for non-believers in our life. We're going to invest in relationships. We are going to share the gospel using this diagram. We're going to follow up by reading the book of John or going through these 7 studies, and then we're going to establish them in these 5 areas of the faith. A very simple process. People will follow clarity over certainty. That's what Craig Rochelle says. Fourth, accountability. Now, accountability goes in 2 directions. It's both personal accountability, but it's also ministry-wide accountability. So for personal accountability, this looked like inside of our discipleship context that we were regularly asking, hey, who are your 5? That was a question that we asked almost every week. And now our 5 were, can you list the names of 5 non-believers in your life that you come in regular contact with that you're actively praying for? So that was a very regular question inside our small groups. We had a way to ask student leaders, have you had the opportunity to share the gospel this month at our week or our monthly leader training? So there was personal accountability that we built in. Now this was with gentleness, it was with patience, it was with grace, but we wanted to have personal accountability. But we also had ministry-wide accountability. We knew who had given their life to Christ, and we kept track of that, first, last names. We knew who had been baptized, and we created fun ways to kind of keep track of that, but it was really important if we were going to create a culture of evangelism that we couldn't be ignorant of what was going on. So we needed to, so we asked our student leaders, are you aware of students who have repented and believed this semester? That is a very regular thing. thing. So commit to accountability, not just personal accountability, but ministry-wide accountability, where you know what is going on in the realm of evangelism in your ministry. Lastly, you got to commit to celebration. Celebration is awesome. It's really fun. And the obvious thing to celebrate is fruit. And so what we did as we found out students were giving their life to Christ, we did a unique thing. We got an air horn, called it the Horn of Salvation, blew the air horn, disrupted our Sunday morning gatherings while we were meeting as a student leader team during the second service, but it was great. It was awesome. That might not be what you do, but we just had fun with it. We celebrated when we heard that people gave their life to Christ. We made a big deal about our baptism services, just celebrating them. Inside our leader group chat, we created a emoji, that the siren emoji. We just plaster that on our group chat whenever we learn of someone giving their life to Christ. So that's a really important piece, but not just celebrating fruitfulness. It was imperative, if we were going to generate an evangelistic culture, to also celebrate faithfulness. So we regularly celebrated, both in our leader context and in our discipleship groups, moments of faithfulness that maybe didn't lead to fruit, but were small steps of faithfulness that were just so important to celebrate. So do you have a list of 5? Oh my word, you have a 4th. Next week, let's get that 5th. When they came back with a 5th, let's celebrate that. Have you regularly been praying for them? Oh, that's amazing. Have you set up a gospel appointment? Yes, I set up a gospel appointment, but it didn't lead to a sharing opportunity. No, hey, you know what? You set up the gospel appointment. That is awesome. We celebrated faithfulness over and over again, and that was a key to us generating evangelistic culture. So those are 5 commitments if you're trying to generate evangelistic culture in your ministry to commit to. First, you got to lead the way. Second, have a singular focus during this season. Devote disproportional energy to addressing this area of your ministry. Third, embrace a simple process. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it needs to be simple and clear to generate momentum and make it accessible for students. Fourth, have accountability, both personal but also ministry-wide. And then 5th, celebrate like crazy what God is doing in your ministry. And if you commit to these, I think you're going to take steps forward in generating an evangelistic culture in your ministry.